Everybody's really a dreamer. Everyone's a dreamer, but sometimes we don't let ourselves dream.
Hi there, I'm Tanya, and you are listening to Human and Holy. Today's episode is such a delight for me to introduce because it's a conversation with my mother, who is such a fun person to talk to, full of so much wisdom and life advice, and is also a complete powerhouse. She is the co-founder and director of Aishel House, which is a bikur cholam, a hospitality house for people in Houston, Texas, who come from all over the world to visit the Texas Medical Center. She is a Chabad shlucha, a mother of 11 children, a Torah teacher, and a woman who just lives with so much vivaciousness and passion and wisdom and depth. And I'm really excited to get to share her with you today. This episode was recorded live in LA, and you'll get to hear audience questions at the end from the women who attended this conversation live. We talk all things life. I mean, if you're going to sit down with your mother, what are you going to talk about? You're going to talk about life. Give me the juicy bits. Give me the wisdom. We talk about living life with joy in the everyday, how my mother thinks about life when she lives in the wake of so much death and illness. We talk about learning how to dream, how to have a sense of vision about your life. We talk about raising children with Jewish values, even when they're growing up in a secular environment. And we talk about what it means to be a giver and how my mother thinks about being in this position of giving for so many people, and how she really sees herself as being a channel from God in this world. Before we get started with today's episode, I want to share something very exciting with you that's coming up, and that is that Human and Holy is finally bringing our Tanya classes that I host in LA to the online space. This is something that I tested out months ago, but didn't have the proper infrastructure and support to make it a sustainable part of my life and Human and Holy's ecosystem. And I'm so excited to share that we are launching Chapter 2 of the Tanya, a 3-part live series with me where I will be teaching the ideas of the Tanya through art, poetry, conversation, guided study, connection, curated songs and music to help us go deep together and to really create this opportunity to connect with the text of the Tanya in a creative and connected way. I would love to have you there. The dates are Thursday, February 26th, March 5th, and March 12th. If you can't make it live, then all recordings are uploaded afterwards. All the links are in the show notes for you to check out this class, see if it's the right space for you. Would love to meet you there, connect with you, study Tanya together, all of my favorite things. So would love to have you there. And I'm so excited to get that launched and started. If you love Human and Holy, I'd love if you could take a quick minute to make sure that you are following us. And if you are, leave us a rating or a review. It's a small lift from you, but it really supports the show and helps us grow in bringing you better, richer, and deeper content. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. I don't take a moment of your attention and presence for granted. Let's get to today's episode.
Welcome. I'm very excited. It's very exciting to get to do this live with my mother. I always told my mother, next time you come visit me, we're doing a live podcast together, because she's been highly requested to do a podcast with on the podcast. So I'm excited for us to do this. And what makes this fun is getting to have your questions as part of the conversation tonight. So we will have a chunk of time for you to ask questions, to follow up on any of the things that we talk about in the conversation, and we would love to hear your thoughts on it. So
That's really cool. Yeah,
how do you feel?
Nice. It's good.
Yeah?
Yeah. It's like a Farbrengen. It's good. You can't really see the cameras, and
Just
the lights were set up before. So
right. So you feel comfortable. Okay, good. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your backstory in 30 seconds. Where do you come from? What's your background?
So I grew up in Montreal. My parents are two very special people that when I was growing up, I didn't realize. That is not to reflect them, but to reflect what I took for granted, maybe. I'm one of 13 children, and I grew up in a very peaceful, happy home. And I grew up during the time where driving to Crown Heights back and forth for Farbrengens was maybe what we did at carpool today, almost. We just didn't think twice. We were oh, the Rebbe is speaking. My father got into the car, and whoever could hitch a ride was lucky, literally. So that's my upbringing.
That's your upbringing. Okay, cool. So currently, my mother runs something called Aishel House, which is an incredible bikur cholam in Houston, Texas, where they host Jews from all over the world, all types of backgrounds, all different stages in life, coming to the Texas Medical Center, which is the largest medical center in the world. And they have apartments and housing and food and care and love. And like, I grew up with this, and it's the most incredible thing as an adult looking back and seeing what you do. I have so much admiration for it. And I would love if you could give a little bit of the backstory to how you came to that work. There was actually some of the questions that came in was about like, how did you get into Aishel House?
Okay. So initially when we first got married, we moved to Houston on shluchas. My husband is from Houston. And no, it wasn't the obvious shluchas, actually. We almost went to Hong Kong and to Eretz Yisrael. We went to the Rebbe. We had different directions, and we ended up in Houston. And after moving to Houston, we moved to the medical center, but we actually moved to Rice University, which is right across the street we're on University Boulevard. To our right is a huge medical center that has its own police. It employs something like 175,000 people. You can look it up online. I don't remember the exact number now. It has like, I don't know how many beds, unfortunately. And across the street is a really beautiful, small, private university. And we initially came to do shluchas at the university. 2 days after we moved there, that Shabbos, the first Shabbos we were there, I gave birth to a little girl, Chaim Mushka, who was born with a lot of birth defects and health challenges. And a year later, on Gimel Tammuz, she was nifter. She passed away. So basically, we moved there, and as soon as she was born, we realized that our shluchas kind of needed to take a different angle. We kind of felt like my husband said it was a message from Hashem, telling us that we have to really point to another direction. And essentially that's what we did. We continued working with Rice students, and we still have Rice alum that we're close with. And we even had the zchus to attend the marriage of their children and to see the nachas growing from their families. And someone in Eretz Yisrael, just so many beautiful things. But essentially after spending a year in the hospital, we realized that there's a lot of other people spending time in the hospital, had nowhere to stay. So we decided that we would start being chalas. And fast forward, we first rented an apartment, and then we bought a building. There's a guy who owned it. His name was Samir Tuma. He was an Israeli Arab, and he would not want to sell the building to us. We bought this building, and we found that his name was Tuma. We were like, we have to buy the building. It's like not a joke. It's a long story. Eventually, we bought the building from him. We slowly renovated one apartment at a time. That's when Tanya was growing up. We were renovating the apartments. And actually, when Tanya was growing up, I remember distinctly one woman who came from Eretz Yisrael. She was supposed to stay in one of the apartments, but she was afraid to stay there herself, and her family was going to be with her on and off. She wanted to stay in our house. And when she came the first time, we didn't have room in the apartment, so they stayed in our house. She slept downstairs, and her kids slept upstairs, because we figured they're going to be only for a weekend, and she's going to be there for a few months. And when her kids left, she was like, can I come upstairs? I don't want to be downstairs myself. Now, our house was 2,600 square feet. It wasn't like a big house. And we probably had how many children then? I don't know, 8, 10. And we were like, okay, where do you want to go? She said, in the room of the girls, she'll sleep with them. We were like, she can't sleep with the girls. It's not fair to her. So the girls slept for 9 months on the floor in the little boys' room. You remember that? You remember? Are you traumatized?
I'm so glad you asked. This is the perfect moment for me to talk about this. No, she used to give us Shabbos treats every Friday.
Yes,
so
she was very good. She gave them pekalach.
Yeah.
Even the little kids who couldn't speak used to knock on her door and wait for the pekalach.
Yeah.
And she taught me a lot of beautiful things. Anyways, so we ended up, then slowly over time, we experienced some kind of a tremendous, challenge in our shluchas, being that in the community that we were in, my husband has a beard, obviously, and I'm a frum lady, and they didn't like that we were taking center stage because we are there for everybody. So people of all walks of life feel comfortable at Aishel House and stay there. And they went to the hospitals and barred us from entering the hospitals, saying that we were racist, homophobic, Jews. Long story short, I had a very beautiful story when we went to Chevron. Like after spending 10 years of doing the shluchas, I didn't understand what the Eibishter wanted because I knew that no one else was doing our work, and I wasn't sure if it was a message from Hashem or if we're supposed to withdraw. Like we couldn't figure out what to do. And actually, Mrs. Brand's family invited us to Eretz Yisrael for a wedding, and we came for the first time to Eretz Yisrael together. And we went to Rochel. We went to Chevron. And it's a really beautiful story because my daughter-in-law, Shterna, actually wrote it up as an article, I think, in Ami. But it was a very moving time for me. You're not supposed to ask for signs, but we got onto a bus going to Hebron, and every time we go to Eretz, we try to go to Hebron, and we got on in the Tachana Merkazit, so we should not have to worry. By the time we got to the Vitka Square, it was totally packed. There was no room, and there was this couple speaking Spanish begging the bus driver to let them on, because they said they're leaving Eretz tonight, and if they don't, they won't be able to go to Hebron. He had Rachman, he let them on, and anyways, we started traveling towards Hebron. I'm busy saying my Tehillim. I was really, I would say, very broken, because all the work that I did, I thought like maybe Hashem wasn't receiving it. Maybe I did it with some ego. It was very disturbing to me that we couldn't do our work anymore. And we knew there were Yidden in the medical center. We couldn't reach them. And I wanted like a sign from Hashem that we should continue doing our work. And for those of you who go to the Asial and daven, we make reference that the Rabbeim go and wake up the Avos and ask. So I figured we're going to go straight to the Avos and ask, And I'm in the middle of davening, and I didn't realize my husband was busy talking to people and who he was talking to. And I'm busy davening by Avram's caver, and all of a sudden my husband calls my name, and I'm like, what? And he's like, come here, someone wants to speak to you. And there's this woman from Mexico, and she said, oh, Rabbanit, I never got a chance to thank you. I don't know if you remember, but I was in this hospital, and you sent us food. I even remember what you made, and I told my husband I need the recipe, and I started to cry. And she didn't know what she said wrong, And I realized how unlikely is that in Hebron. And then I realized those were the people who got on the bus last, and I was like, thank you, Hashem, for giving me this little message to make it clear to me that I need to do my work. So after that, we came back, and we had a lot more challenges, but it just didn't bother me because I knew that I'm supposed to do this. So imagine I didn't have that feeling before. I could have done it before. But for whatever reason, I felt the challenge. If the challenge seemed real, so it didn't happen. Then afterwards, we built a building, and which in itself is many miracles and many great stories. But really now I give a lot of gratitude to Hashem that He sent us on this journey to be able to do this work. And it's transformative work. It's not a place for, you have to be vulnerable, you have to be real. There's no wiggle room for, you can't hide. It's not a place where you can hide, but it's very uplifting and it's very good. I don't know.
I love that you said it's very uplifting, because so much of what you're doing is taking care of people at very serious times in their life, probably the most challenging time for people. A lot of people experience loss there or very serious illness, and that very often people are obviously coming across the world for that reason. Something that I'm wondering is what your experience of being so close to such serious challenge, illness, or death, how it has changed your own experience of life.
So, so first of all, it gives me a tremendous gratitude for everything that I have. And I've learned about all different parts of your body that have to work for you to be healthy. And I've learned about different rare diseases that God should protect us from them. And the interesting is...
Which makes our family hypochondriacs.
No, I don't know if we're hypochondriacs. No, but I don't know if
are you taking folic acid? You know what I mean? Because the amount of babies that my mother has seen was
take your folic acid. Every woman who's in the childbearing years, take folic acid.
I mean, all the things. If you have a rash, it could be something fatal.
But I don't think we talk like that.
No. It's very responsible.
Yeah. But I don't think we're paranoid. I don't think we're paranoid at all.
No, not at all.
Actually, to the contrary, I think what it gave me was this understanding that if it's your time, it's your time. And it doesn't matter what you're going to do. But I remember one time we came to Eretz Yisrael to visit with a whole bunch of families who were in Aishel House. And they said, Rochel, share with us something, just something uplifting. At that time, Levitcha was like a little baby. He was 2.5 years old. And I have a son who mature young man, but when he was little, he was similar to my grandchildren, Levitic, didn't follow rules.
My mother's getting a little wake-up call. She's taking
No, I have them at home too. They're in Houston too. They're delicious.
It's very similar to my son.
By the way, it's not to be stressed. It's good. It's a healthy thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I remember we were getting the whole house ready. I forgot what we were doing, and someone donated a whole bunch of telephones for the office. So we put them on the dining room table. And there was a tablecloth and everything. And then at that time, I was toilet training my son, and he was wearing just a T-shirt. I don't know how you do your toilet training, but I used to be around them and just watch them while they're wearing a long camp T-shirt. and he climbed on the table to check out the phones, and then he squatted, and then I smelled something, and I was like, oops. And my first reaction was, Baruch Hashem, it works perfectly, because a girl just a few months earlier had a bowel transplant. She had a whole transplant for her whole system. And I was like, could you imagine? So they told me, they laughed really hard because you know which kid it was, but really it has given me the perspective that even when you have a headache, and it's just a headache from stress or tension or exhaustion or not enough coffee or too much coffee or whatever it is, your brain is working, everything's fine, your body's telling you to slow down, that's it. What a bracha. So you could actually, so I feel like whenever I get a flu or I get a really, like one of those diseases where you think you're dying, I say, Baruch Hashem, it's temporary. It's only 3 days, 5 days max. And then when it's at day 7, I'm like, it's still temporary. It's still temporary. Exactly. So that has helped me that way. I have met a lot of very special people. And I'm sure you know that special people don't come in the same package. And sometimes people who you think are going to be like really incredible spiritual people, they're average strugglers who are wondering if God exists. And then you meet people who you didn't even know that they believe in Hashem. And they have so much emunah. And you stand in front of them and you say, wow, who was your mother? Or who was your father? Or who taught you this? And that to me is really amazing. I've learned that there's many, many beautiful Yidden with hidden beautiful neshamas that we get to see, like the Yechidah Nefesh shines when a person's fighting their ultimate fight, and we get to meet a lot of them. And the most beautiful ones are the ones that go home and they get better and we stay in touch, and that's very special.
This is probably one of the most memorable things, or maybe the thing that I have the most appreciation for looking back at the experience of being around Aishel House and seeing it now as an adult, is your and Tati, my father's attitude towards giving, like the language that you use to people that, just to give some context, some framework, it will be like 10 p.m. or this is how I grew up. It was like 10 p.m. and someone who's going through treatment is like craving steak and fries specifically. And so my mother like gets up in her pajamas, makes the food, and sends it with my father. And now there's more of a team, but you still definitely are doing things like that. But we did it one night. We did it one night. We had so much fun. And like just like small anecdotes like that. And my mother used to daven that Hashem should send her the people that need what they were providing. And there was always really this like, you wanted to be doing it so truly. You always felt like it was like your joy is not the word. It was like, you really used to speak and use the language of like, I'm a messenger for Hashem to help these people. And very clearly seeing through like my parents came on shluchas to college campus, then their second daughter was sick and passed. And that's how they got into the work of helping helping people in the hospitals. It started as a small project of bringing challahs, and then it sort of developed from there. It grew. So you really see how Hashem like placed your soul to be helping people in the hospitals, not something that you expected to be doing. But I want to hear a little bit from you about what your perspective is on giving as a messenger from Hashem. Like, what is your relationship to the people who are receiving from you? Obviously, people are coming in very hard times that no one wishes to be in. And it's people who are like thriving before. Like, no one wants to be in that circumstance. It feels like an other, but it could be any of us. So what's your philosophy on that, or your perspective?
You know, I think I remember which person this was who was getting the food. It was actually a Jewish girl who was born to a drug-addicted mother, who became frum on her own and had nobody in the world. And we were like her guardian angels at that time, which many shluchim go through that kind of situation. But I could say that I remember one time I was learning Tanya, and I think I was listening to like Rabbi Yossi Jacobson's old tapes. I used to walk the kids in the stroller and listen to Tanya while I was walking the stroller. With cassette, okay? And he had this thing called, I think it was called A Tale of Two Souls or something. And you couldn't do it on speed, by the way.
Yeah, okay? That's unfortunate.
But I would walk around Rice and I would listen to his talks. And then I remember I was learning the part in Tanya where it says that if someone has a netiyah to something, if someone has a natural inclination to do something, you know, your reward is not that great. The Alter Rebbe speaks about if someone sits and studies Torah all day, but that's, you know, they have a cold soul, so to speak, that's their preference. Their reward, or and I don't want to use the word reward because in Chassidus we say like their connection is not really happening so much. It's more like it's their nature. They're doing it. And I came home and I said to my husband, I love helping people. I know it's going to happen. After 120 years, they're going to say, oh yeah, but you like to do all this. It's that person you spoke about that you don't like. That's the problem. And I was like, I became literally, I don't want to say like it, I became very bothered by this. And I started to wonder, like, am I helping people because it's my nature? And because I just appreciate helping people? Or is this really, am I doing this because the Eibishter wants me to do this? So my husband teased me and he said, Rochel, you know how sometimes you help people all day and we sent out dinners and everything. And then at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, someone calls and then you say, why didn't they call 2 hours ago? We could have just put it together. And then you have to start it all over again. He said, when you do that that's like lishma. I said, oh, okay. So then every time afterwards, I'm like, oh, this is lishma, 100% lishma. I have no desire to do this, Eibishter. I don't want to do this. So we started this thing. And just recently I was with my daughter-in-law and Sarah in the kitchen. And we got I had just come back from, I don't know where we were traveling. I came back from being in New York with Bubby. And she called me and she said, SOS, we just got this request. I don't know what to prepare. I said, hey, take out these 2 steaks, do this, do that. I'm coming over. I'll help you finish all up. We made a stunning dinner. And when she came back, she said, that was even fun. I said, I know, but we did it lishma.
Don't enjoy it too much.
So really, my perspective of this, and I don't say it's only about a meal or a listening ear or even saying a kapitel tilim, but if today they've taken the Rebbe's words and put it in sayings. I would say, I don't know if the Rebbe said exactly that, but they'll say if you see something broken, it's your job to fix it, right? Something like this. They
either
say.
Him or Abraham Lincoln.
What?
I said either it's him or Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
someone great.
Whatever. But in Chassidus, there's this idea that if something passes before you, it's your opportunity to be metaken that. Now, if a person thinks of themselves that their time is theirs and their energy is theirs, then they could be frustrated and say, oh, I'm helping this person now. But if you realize that your time and your energy is actually not yours, it's a gift the Eibishter gave you now, and he will decide if he's going to give you opportunities to share this with other people. And you have to be, it's basically the Eibishter has to decide that he's letting you into that other person's private space. When you realize that another person's needs, Hashem could fill it by anybody. He doesn't need you. He could have someone else smile to this person. He could have someone else give this person the love. He could have someone else take care of this person, whether it's your spouse, your child, or a stranger. But he gave you now either the skills, the opportunity, or the wherewithal. And if you tap into it, you're basically doing, first of all, Ratzon Ha'el, and you're doing the will of Hashem, and you're bringing down the Shekhinah there. So how amazing when a Jew asks you for something, and they're in and I was in that other corner where it's dark, it's dreary, you're alone, you don't want to be pitied, you don't want to, even when my son Naftali was in the hospital, that second time around when we got our refresher course from the Eibishter, I didn't want to take food from anybody. My husband said, you don't want to take food from anybody? He said, Rachi, they prepared it. I said, but they gave us a box of food. How are we going to eat all of this stuff? He said, just taste of everything so you could give these people the opportunity for it. And then I realized, of course. So I tasted from everything. But I know how hard it is to let somebody into your life in such a vulnerable time. If they're already letting you in, I sure hope and pray you recognize how lucky you are to stand in front of the burning bush. Just stand there and say, thank you, Hashem, that you gave me this opportunity, and try not to mess it up. That's essentially what I would say.
Nice.
So, but we do have this thing with the volunteers where we say, you're not doing anybody a favor. If it's too hard for you, don't do it. This is something that we are blessed to be able to do it. And I think most of our volunteers have that attitude.
Well, that was very interesting when you said, if I'm enjoying it too much, then maybe I'm not really doing anything good.
Yeah.
My perspective is the opposite. Is if I'm not enjoying it, I'm worried that I'm not doing something good. I feel the highest give it is if you're doing it with that full pleasure and joy, and that's real.
Yeah, but sometimes it could be it's your nature. Your nature is giving nature, so you're
fulfilling your mission in this world.
Yeah, but maybe your mission is where you're not so comfortable.
So you're saying like mission should be against your nature.
No, but to grow and strive beyond what you have. Like, there's a story with Tzemach Tzedek that the Alter asked him if he wanted to know, I forgot what, if anybody here remembers, tell me. He wanted to know a certain amount of Torah just to know it. Like I say, free download,
Mm-hmm.
And he said, no, he wants to earn it. And then he said he regretted it later because he said he could have had that and then learned more on top of it. So the same thing is with like kishrenis or let's say talents or resources Hashem gives you. The minute you realize that Hashem gave you these things to use it for the fullest, you have to take that and go further. You can't just coast at what you have. You have to push yourself. So
when you push yourself, then you're
serving. When you push yourself, when you exert, it's like an exercise. If you're at 10 pounds, can't be at 10 pounds forever.
Can you guys tell my mother loves to lift weights?
You can't be at 10 pounds forever. No, really.
Right.
I say I call it my mechanic. I go to the mechanic 3 times a week to make sure I have alignment.
Good metaphors for teaching Torah, no?
Oh yeah.
I feel like
weights is amazing.
Weights is good.
Yeah.
Okay, so being surrounded by people who are going through a challenging time, I think that this is something that's very relevant for all of us, which is that you can be surrounded by anyone who is going through something or the world that's suffering, and to be able to stay in a joyful state when confronted by a lot of hardship and challenge, not necessarily just in your own life, but in other people's, to be experiencing over and over again other people's darkness or difficult experiences and playing that supportive role. How do you stay joyful on a day-to-day basis?
So there's a few answers to this. The first thing is like, I remember one time I was really sad about something. It was really a devastating experience. A very young mother, 9 children, and she was misdiagnosed for a long time. And then when she got her treatment basically gave her a brain bleed and she was nifter. And I knew her family. It was devastating. And I literally sat in Tati's office like crying and said, okay, it's over. The Abish is trying to kill the soldiers. He just killed the soldier. I can't do it anymore. Can't breathe. I can't breathe. And of course, you work past that. But my mother told me something very beautiful. She said, I was crying and she said, Rochel, your tears are self-pity. If you really want to do something to change it. You can't cry. And I think a lot of times when something terrible happens, like even let's say October 7th or even now with Label, we're saying, oh, how did this happen? It's terrible. And we become angry and we're resentful and we're mad or we're sad. And we think with this, we're going to bring more good in the world. We're not. If we really cared, we would say, you could be upset, you could be very afraid and go through those emotions, but you have to right away move past them and go to the place of action. That's first of all. Second of all, in the work that we do, Tati reminded me, and I have to say that I have an incredible partner that I say he's my left side of my brain. I call Tati my left side of my brain, but like that sometimes I would be very devastated. I said, I feel so bad, like we failed these people. They came for treatment, it didn't work. And he'd say, it's not our job. Our job was to make them comfortable and to give them hope and to guide them to the place where they needed to go. And we did our work. That's it. We did our Aveda. I think in life, it doesn't even have to be like such a devastating thing, but we have children. We try to raise children. We have siblings. We have people have a spouse. We can't do everything for them. We can't be the end all be all. We have to do whatever we can. And then we have to be simcha and say, Hashem gave me these things that I could do. The rest I have to leave up to him. I can't change everything. And then I just have like, if you want to live a good life, you have to be, I think discipline is one of the first things to do. But to be joyful, it's much easier to be joyful on a full night's sleep if you exercise and you eat well and you drink a lot of water. A lot of times people like, and I'm really strict with myself to go to sleep early. And there was a lady that was in Aishel House 25 years ago. Rochel, can I ask you, do you still go to sleep like at 9 o'clock? I'm like, yeah. She's like, how do you do it? And of course, I break the rule sometimes when I have a chasana or if I travel or if I do like special things. But generally speaking, my daily routine, I respect that my body is a limited vessel. And for my, let's say, eternal soul to shine in this limited vessel, I need to respect the vessel. And I always tell my kids, nobody would pour endlessly into a cup that doesn't fill. So to do practical things like that. And then another thing is, I'm very careful. I try to be careful what goes into my head. And I learned this over time because let's say somebody would come and I would Google their disease. And then I would become disheartened by what they had. No, it's not my business. I'm not the doctor. It's not my business. And then, and I actually could tell you an incredible story that happened. There was a family, I think you were there, Pesach. Tanya, you were there that Pesach?
I don't know.
It was like after the first days of Pesach, a family came shell-shocked from Mexico. Their son had advanced leukemia. He didn't know. He was a young person, very active, and he cut himself on his hand, like glass fell on his arm. They went to the hospital to sew him up, and it wasn't sewing up, and then he collapsed. And then they realized that something's very wrong with him. They took his blood, and he had like full blast leukemia. And they had just been at a party, or maybe he collapsed at the party. Something happened. So this guy was looked like a healthy, young, 28-year-old, 30-year-old guy. Okay, so Pesach. So in Mexico, they told him that he's dying in 36 hours. So the father said, "I'm not taking that." He puts him on a flight. They don't have a lot of money. They pooled all the money together, the whole family. They rented a private plane and they brought him to MD Anderson. And MD Anderson said, he probably has a week. And I'll never forget when his mother came through the doors. I didn't know what happened. I just know that they said this 28-year-old guy has a week. And I was like, please give me a break, a week. Why do they start giving nevuas? They start giving prophecies. Like, please, just stick to your job and heal. And I told the mother, don't have to believe anything they say. Hashem is one who's the healer. He could do anything. And she was literally sobbing and shaking. She said, you don't understand. They said no. They said, it's over. They don't even know why we brought him from Mexico. I said, don't listen. You daven, daven, daven. There's a lady who told me that I didn't know. I didn't know who she was. She didn't even go to Shalom Yom Kippur. But I didn't know. Like, I'm not living in her community. I'm just treating her like every Jew. And I said, do you have a Tillim? She got a translated Tillim. And her daughter-in-law wouldn't leave. They were newly married for 1 year. She wouldn't leave her newly married husband's side. And her family was coming. And until we figured out, till we got them to eat something, it was that was also very tricky, that just to get them to eat. And then, long story short, he stays in a coma for 6 weeks. After 6 weeks, the doctor locally says, you know what, let's try to treat him while he's in a coma. They start to treat him with a chemo. He starts waking up from the coma. He ends up being in the hospital for 6 months. He survives this for 6 months. He gets a donor match that's only 50%. The donor match is only 50% takes. He gets healthy. He's alive and well today, 4 years later.
Wow.
Now, if I would have had the knowledge of that medicine or of his diagnosis, I would never be able to tell it to his mother, because I'm a rational person. And I'd be like, false hope and all that stuff. So I have actually now, to stay happy, I'm like, it's not my department. I don't have to be informed about that. And I actually could help people get there. And with this woman, Margarita, she is we're still in touch, and she still sends me pictures. And it's really, to me, I realize that for you to be joyful, you have to be careful what you put into your head. What kind of music you listen to, what kind of news you listen to, what kind of gossip you listen to. Don't poison your well and think.
Make sure it's good gossip.
Yeah, no. no gossip. No, let me tell you, sometimes, by the way, somebody...
Because she brings it out in me, you know what I'm saying? I feel 12 right now.
By the way, I wanted to tell you something. That I know I look all straight-laced and everything else. I was a troublemaker when I was younger. I worry about kids who are not troublemakers. Just going to say, troublemakers get places. I always tell people, they say, really? You're a troublemaker? I'm like, look at this bullying. My husband, she's the biggest troublemaker. She's always making trouble. But I'm a troublemaker by nature. But what I mean to say is be smart about your life. So if you want to stay joyful, let's say you can't afford to buy things. Don't go shopping. Simple. Don't go to the store. Don't be a fool and go to the store. Then you say, I wish I could buy that. Now, if you could go shopping, if you could buy something, decide what you're buying before and how much you're spending, and do whatever you have to do. Or even, let's say, you don't have the strength to invite somebody that has a lot of rambunctious children. Don't invite them over. Meet them in a park. Do different things. Just be smart about how you're living your life. And usually when people mature a little bit, they become more accepting of their limitations, because they too many times failed. They said, I don't want to fail again. But the beauty you have as a young person is you could learn from the mistakes of older people. Listen to your body, listen to your psyche. If you can't do it, don't push yourself. Know what your limits are. And that's how you stay joyful. And then I tried to learn Tanya. I learned chitas every day. And even when I had little children, I try to learn the whole time. So I should be connected to something higher than my physical self, because your physical self could give you X amount of satisfaction, but your spiritual self could give you something that it could take your body places where it can't go. But you have to respect your body, and staying joyful is like that. And today there's letters of the Rebbe, and that they even put together and compile together. You could learn them. They're short, they're sweet. Also, I find saying Tillim helps me to be joyful. And I make dance parties in my kitchen. I'm very serious. Even my cleaning help.
You're not listening to the recordings of the Rebbe Sichos.
Right,
There's like the
there's certain hours.
Yeah.
In the morning till 12, I do it. After
that's something I'm traumatized from.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
That's Rachmanis on the Gayas. The Gayas are like, oh, El Padre, El Padre.
It doesn't go well with music. It's very
No, because I listen to the Rebbe Sichos, but basically it's for me to be, it just keeps me in the zone when I'm working really hard. But then when we put on other music, dancing and joyful, and how many people come to the kitchen to get something, and I'm like, and we start dancing in the kitchen. Sometimes if it's a man, I can't do that, obviously. But we stay with
I feel like you listening to the Rebbe speaking in his original talks is like pretty cool way to be cooking. One of the big things about how you cook is really, first of all, the cookies on the back are my mother's. She brought them in bags from Aishel House, and they're so good.
And they're very, by the way, we don't want to give people too much sugar.
Right.
So but those cookies came from somebody. How did we make those cookies? A lot of our food has like a history. Those cookies came from a lady who was going through very difficult treatment, and everybody in her family should be well. And she wanted soft almond cookies. She said, Amaretti cookies. I was like, I never heard of Amaretti cookies. She says, you never heard of Amaretti cookies? Well, Baruch Hashem for Google. We Googled it, and between all the recipes, we tried one, we tried another one. She wanted it very soft. She didn't want it to chew. We made it. She loved it. We started sending it. We served it Friday night. Everybody loved it. It's one of our signature cookies. It's like, can we have your almond cookies?
So the way that's like a big thing for you is cooking with the intention of people eating your food and experiencing refuah, experiencing healing through the eating. And I think that even the way that you cook, my mother, the way that you cook is almost like the way that most of us would be like doing a very holy act with that like background of a tzaddik's voice, learning Torah at the same time. Like we're not boogieing in the kitchen. Like when we're there alone, we are. But like when you're there, like on a Friday, you're listening to the talks of the Rebbe, and I think that like really speaks to your perspective on how you cook for people in that time. Like you really are trying to, like you talk about that, and I think that that's something like if you come into you cooking on Friday, it's like it's almost like a serious.
So we have some people who come in to come. They say, "Oh, they heard that they come to look at the kitchen to see what's going."
It's a holy place.
Our kitchen, the holy kitchen.
Yeah.
But we have this. One of the dishes that we make is a jalapeno dip that's delicious. That also evolved from Mrs. Brand. This lady came from Asial, and she wanted to know if I have schug. I'm like, "What's schug?" Like, I mean, I knew how to cook, but I didn't know how to cook everyone's kind of food. So she said, like, it's a sharp food. I said, "Oh, we have jalapenos." So she said, no, but you need them to be very small. So the first time I made it, I chopped jalapenos very finely and I fried it. And then she said, but it has tomato. And then I developed this thing where I sliced the jalapenos, seared them in a pan, and then layered it with like a matbucha. Now we make the jalapenos. It's almost like the kids come to watch. In the commercial kitchen, if you take a lot of oil and it's a really high fire and you pan sear, you get this nice big flame on top, So
it's a fire show.
I always feel like I'm in the Beis Hamikdash, the Kohanim bring karbanos. I'm like, Eibishter, we're right here, we're ready.
I love that.
We're almost done.
I love that. You just mentioned before when you said you can learn from the mistakes of the people that came before you. So what's a mistake that you've made in the past that you think that could be a lesson to other people?
So maybe like a mistake from mine in the past. It's if it was only one, I'd be very lucky. I made a lot of mistakes, but none of the mistakes I made was intentional. Meaning to say, I didn't have intention to do something that wasn't. I usually followed my intuition. Most of the time, my intuition was right for myself, but maybe with my children. And maybe ben adam lachavere, I didn't read the other person correctly. And not in Aishel House, but saying like maybe I didn't realize that person was coming from a place of serious trauma or emotional deficit, that's why they spoke so nasty to me. Whereas today, I could know that easily, and I could overlook when somebody is nasty. But it used to be that if somebody hurt my feelings, like either publicly or said something not nice to me, I would be very profoundly hurt. And then I wish I stopped more and I tried, but maybe I don't remember so well, to enjoy every moment of your life. Like every moment of living, and maybe to travel more to see my parents. That's why I'm traveling more and doing that more as I'm getting older. I thought I didn't have the money or the time, or I couldn't get away. I didn't go to your graduation. I didn't go to Rachel's graduation. I regretted that tremendously. Like with Rivka, everything. Oh, Rivka's getting everything. I'm like, no, Rivka's getting
She's
everything.
The youngest.
Yeah, Rivka's getting everything we wanted to really do, but we thought we couldn't do it. So I think really you could do everything you really want to do. Do you really want to do it? That's the question. So maybe like I regret like not having that carefree time. Like with my teenage daughters, I was too busy. Like, you know what I mean? So I hope I'm not doing that either now. I'm trying not to with my grandchildren. I don't want to miss their little moments.
That's so beautiful.
Listen, every day is a gift from Hashem. We don't know like what Hashem has in mind for us. And some people say, like, sometimes we have people who are very stressed out and crying and worried about their life. And I would say, what if someone told you that you're going to live till 100? You're just going to have a lot of trials and tribulations. Would you be so stressed out? They're like, no. So I'm like, everyone should live life. They can live till 120. But it doesn't mean you should squander the time. It means that you should live every day. But, so now I feel like I have another 60 years to do this.
Life.
Yeah, exactly. 60 something years to do this.
That's cool.
Yeah, but I'm sure, and by the way, probably my mistakes, more people know than I know.
No.
As I get us. Adam Karvatzma, no. You see yourself, you judge yourself favorably.
Really?
Yeah.
Some people are very harsh on themselves.
No, I'm saying like a person says, oh, I'm okay, it's fine. Some things I can't say publicly, I could...
We could talk about it later.
No, if it's recorded, you have to be very sensitive.
Yeah. It was actually
one of my prerequisites for having a farbrengen is that there's no recording. So this is, I don't consider for real farbrengen if you have a recording.
Right, we'll shut it off. So
yeah, if you don't have a recording, what happens is then everybody could say everything, and then you could, denial plausibility. You could say, I never said that, I don't know what you're talking about.
Never happened.
Never happened.
Cool. I just learned some new things there. That was interesting. I'm still thinking about the graduation because I didn't know that you even remembered that you didn't come to my graduation.
Oh, it bothers me terribly.
Really?
I was torn if I should go or not.
So, I'm so happy. Like,
it was so complicated, and I was like, I should really be going. I shouldn't be going, but it was complicated to leave, and yeah.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and it was fine, by the way. It was Bistrovka. We were all like partying on the stage. So, the next question I want to ask you is about the vision that you have in your life. I think that like one of your like most incredible qualities, gifts, like geniuses, is that you are like the queen of imagination and vision. Like my mother,
it's a Schmuckler thing.
She can look into like thin air and like dream up something. Like one of my memories is my mother standing in the back of our house, which is now demolished and turned into a parking lot for the Aishel House, standing in the back window and just like standing there like with her hands, and she was like, "This is what I see." And she saw like she was describing Asial House, and she had a dream, and she's gonna like. You were like holding these like dreams in your head and bringing them to life. And I think that's something, this like ability that you really have to like imagine something very different from what's currently there. And obviously you've done that. Like the Asial House building is unbelievable. And the whole thing was imagined by you and obviously my father as well. But you bring a lot of imagination and vision to everything that you do. So I'm wondering if you could give advice to anyone else. If you are in a state of life where you can't imagine something different from what is, like, how do you think about imagining something that like literally doesn't exist? Like looking at an empty, barren plot of land or a place where there is a building and imagining something completely different there. And besides for bringing it to life, but even just having that imagination about.
Do you know that it says in Chassidus, I don't know, I think Tzemach Tzedek said it, that for a chassid to be a real Ovid, he has to have a good imagination. Because really, if you look at yourself, you say, me, I'm going to grow spiritually. Let's be real. If I don't have my coffee by a certain time, I'm like grouchy. That's a spiritual person? Really? A coffee? Like, what happened? But you have to have an imagination that you could grow beyond that. And in life, you'll see that you went to places that you never imagined. Like, I saw from whatever I experienced as a teenager that I never thought I could go to where I was. I wasn't climbing a ladder to get to a certain place, but I never let my circumstance dictate where I wanted to go. I always let my inner compass dictate where I wanted to go. And not only that, even with my children, and I remember I told Ilana about, like, I would imagine some people like that were going through illness, and I would just imagine them healthy, see them healthy, see them like that. I think that's something that a Yid has koyach, just like we have koyach hadibur, we have the power of speech, we have the power of envisioning, and we have this, look at the Chazan Yeshayahu, it says over there that on Tisha B'Av, right, every Yid sees the vision of the Beis HaMikdash. This is a sign to a Jew that we have to see the good future ahead of us. If someone wants to get married, they should think what kind of dress they're going to wear. What is their husband going to be like? Do you think they're going to live in that country? Where is he now? What are they doing? If they're asking Hashem to have children, it's like, what kind of pregnancy is going to be like? Where am I going to give birth? Things like that. People have to go to that place. If you talk to anybody who's successful in anything, if it's business, spiritual, material, emotional, they have to see the place they're going to before they go there. They have to have the roadmap before they go there. You have to really see yourself going to that place. And by the way, like my husband tells people many times, my husband used to be an avid cyclist, and he said that he was once reading a cycling magazine, like Danny Gomes says, we'll never forget to say, in the bathroom, because that's where these things belong. But he said he was reading a cycling magazine and said, if you see an object that is in your way, you're not supposed to focus on it. You have to look to where you want to go. Because if you look at the object that's blocking you, you're going to go right into that object, right? So the same thing in life. We could look every time at things that are bothering us or that feel like stumbling blocks and say, this is where I'm at. I'm at that. And you're going to actually hit it right away. But if you look to where you want to go, you're going to end up over there. And if you look at the Rebbe's vision, tonight is 2 nights or a day and a half before Yud Shvat, when the Rebbe took upon his leadership of the Rebbe actually sketched out his vision from the first Maimer that he gave us, that he saw the vision of the world it should be like when Mashiach comes. The Rebbe saw this from the beginning. And then slowly he fed us little information to say, this is how you do it, this is how you do it. And then Chav Zayin Adar, before Chav Zayin Adar, that Chav Ches Nisan Sicha, where the Rebbe said, listen, Chaver, go back to the handbook. You need to finish this job. I'm not going to be able to do it for you. But like, you see that from the beginning, the Rebbe had that vision. The Rebbe was a dreamer. And if you listen to the Rebbe Sichas, the Rebbe makes reference to that many times. And the Rebbe, when he's speaking about Eretz Yisrael, like hoping that they'll have peace through strength and everything else, the Rebbe said, yeah, some people say I'm a dreamer. And the Rebbe always would say, like, the Rebbe says, yeah, but Yosef Atzadik was also a dreamer. So if you look in the Torah, Yosef Atzadik was a dreamer. He saved the Jewish people entirely. And if you realize that your dreams are not foolish, but they're really part of it's like God gives a human being intuition of what they need to do. Many times what we do is we second guess ourselves and we don't listen to our inner voice. And my mother says, the erste machshava is the richtige machshava, which means the first thought is usually the right thought. You ever have an instinct and you say, oh, I should do this. And you say, then there's a famous story, I think, with the Afterov, that someone came to him for, it's a beautiful story, that someone came to him to visit him and gave him a very big nidava. And the Afterov had nothing in it. I think it was the Afterov, I don't remember. And he had nothing left in his household. The Rebbe was destitute, poor. The Shamash was so excited that finally someone came and gave the Rebbe a big nidava. And then he put it into the drawer and he was going to parcel off some for the household, some for the Beis Medrash. And then a man came in and he said that he has 3 daughters to marry off and he has no money and they're going to cancel the weddings. And it was exactly the money that was in the drawer. And the Afterov gave it to him because the first thing that he came to his mind was to give it to this man. And the Shamash, after everybody left, the Shamash says, where's the money from the man that he gave you in the first meeting? And he said, no, I gave it to him. And he said, but what about the fact that we have this and that? He said, my first thought was to give to him. So that I knew was the right thought. Afterwards, the klugin, the Yetzer Hara comes and gives you. So really, everybody's really a dreamer. Everyone's a dreamer. But sometimes we don't let ourselves dream. Don't stop your dreams. Take it to the next level and act on it. Don't be afraid. Fear is worthless. It has no value. Fear is basically nothing. So that's another thing, not to fear. Don't be afraid of failure.
Nice.
Yeah. I failed many times. I was telling somebody that me and my husband, like you fail. And then also, even through your process when you fail, like sometimes we're the Chabad house when we barely have a minyan, we're like, okay, we don't panic. It makes our kids nervous, but we're like, that's what it is today. As does, finished. And then when you have 50, 100, it's good too.
Nice. So you raised, or are still raising, actually.
Yes.
That's the beauty of a big family. It never stops. You raise your entire life. You have 11 children, thank God. Well, 12, Chayla as well. And you are on shlucha, so you don't live in a religious community.
Right.
So what did you think about when you thought about instilling Torah values on your children if they weren't necessarily in that Torah environment?
So, I grew up in a home where my parents never told us what to do. They lived what they wanted us to do. And I think that this is something that I try myself very hard to do, is that if I want something to be fixed in one of my children, I first fix it in myself. And it sounds ridiculous, but most of the time, it's a famous story that I have. One of my kids started saying, what the heck, the whole time. And one time I was like, why is the kid saying what the heck the whole time?
What the heck? Why is he saying that?
And then one time I said, what the heck, what the heck? And then I realized, what the heck, what the heck? And basically, I was saying, what the heck, the whole time. So the kid was saying, what the heck? So most of the time, when you have, let's say, your child behaving in a way that's not giving you nachas, and I'm talking about first little children, very little children, usually they're picking it up from you. They're getting from you like, it's okay to speak not nice about other people, or the second someone leaves the room to speak about them. The child says, it's permitted. It's my parents do it, I could do it. But if the child sees that the parents are behaving in a certain way, whether it's with middays, your shemayim, doesn't matter where you're at in your Yiddishkeit, doesn't matter where you are in your Chassidishkeit. It's how your child sees how true you are to that. Your child will pick up that value. I remember one year, Tati gave a speech on Yom Kippur, and he said, there was a lot of people there, and he said, a lot of times we think we have certain values, but if you ask your children will tell you that you have different values. And I don't know if you remember, by Yom Kippur, I came home, I said, Tati, oh yeah, Rabbi, let's see what our kids think. So we made every kid write 3 things that are most important to Tati and Mommy, and it was a separate paper for Tati and a separate paper for Mommy. And you had to put in an envelope. We said, you don't have to write your name. Like, the kids didn't realize that.
You knew everyone's handwriting.
We knew everyone's handwriting. But the kids
tricked us.
and by the way, it was for us to realize, what's our barometer? Like, what do our kids think?
Right.
What's value to us?
Yeah.
And you know what? All the kids wrote beautiful things, but one kid wrote that we should have enough money for the building, because we had a building campaign. And Tati was so disturbed. Tati said, the kid knows that I'm worried about the building campaign? How did that happen? How did that happen to the kid? But everybody else wrote that you should stay close to your family, and that you should, it was very cute what they wrote for us and Tati. And it was really the value system that we both have, like the siblings, very important. And it was really so cute how they wrote it. Yeah, it was very nice. And we felt better. We said, oh, Baruch Hashem, we got to pass from our kids, because we didn't know what the kids think. And then the older kids came home when we told me, said, oh, really? What did they write? Oh, okay. I don't know if I agree.
Older kids are there to humble you.
They are.
That's older kids.
Older kids are there to humble you. But what does it mean, humble you? Because you could live your lie, but then the teenager cannot live the lie. So the teenager calls you out. So in a way, if you want, you could get angry and say, or you could say, thank you for reminding me that I need to be truthful. And no one's being a liar, but we're living in a very dichotomized world. We're pulled in many directions. The more true we are to where we want our kids to go, the more they will be like that. And then I think really most above all else, like Tati says, shalom bayis, getting along with each other, appreciating each other, and showing your kids that their home base is safe, that they could come home if they have any questions. And then, going to bat for your children, believing in your children. If your child's a little different or does things a little bit different, don't question what other people are going to say. The Frierdiker Rebbe says that never discipline your children out of shame or anger. And how many times people discipline their children out of being embarrassed that the child is doing this in public, or angry that the child crossed them, that the child didn't listen to them, like they're covered, like they were hurt. But if you take anger away and you take shame away, your discipline will be much healthier, and the child will know that. And then you have to live the life and love your children, like live the life you want them to live, and love your children. And then cut them some slack. Someone cut you some slack. And don't interpret every bad behavior as a now new narcissistic, diseased child, or that this child is now going to be super violent, or that, and then do for your children what you do for yourself. Don't expose them to too many negative things. Everything that's available on social media and the web, I know this is on social media, is not for children. They don't need it. They don't need it. Like I was telling your kids, I said, it's better to lay on the grass and stare at the sky and think about how many clouds are there than to watch a video. They're like, really, Bubby? I said, yeah. So Asial right away, on this grass I should lay down? He wanted to do what's better. It's like right in front of the house, I was like, yeah, on this grass. And it's true. So like tone it down. You don't have to entertain your kids. You don't have to take them places. You have to love them. You have to be there for them, and then do your own family rituals. Like remember the birthday things that we always did. You pick the dinner, and then not to talk bad about other Jews who are not as quote unquote religious as you, or as righteous as you, or as whatever as you.
Why does that come into raising children? Because
I think that when your child sees that somebody, let's say your child has a desire to do something like watch television, and you don't have a television in your house, okay? And then you say, oh, those kids, they're always watching television. It's disgusting. The child says, I think I'm pretty disgusting. I want to watch television. I must be a really bad person. Instead, you say to your child, look, we don't watch television because it's not a healthy habit, or you try to explain to your child, whatever you don't want your child to do. And then I find the best thing is not to put your child in through temptation at a young age. When the child's already 10, 12, they could make more choices. But when they're very little, there's no reason to expose your child to something that you don't want your child to develop a habit for. So it is a little bit selective. And I don't want to say protective, but it's your job as a parent. And how many play dates that I go to the house and sit in the house by the play date, like I had nothing else to do. But I had no choice. I didn't feel like in that house I could leave my child there. And then sometimes, to be a stickler. Remember, I didn't let you go to that bas mitzvah sleepover? And everybody went. So I didn't want to be mean. So we picked you up at midnight.
Yeah.
But at least not to sleep there.
That's actually something that I grew up with that I feel very grateful for.
Yeah.
Is growing up without television or secular. I mean, we had non-Jewish books, but
reading
secular like movies and stuff. We're gonna pivot now to some audience questions. I'm taking out
I want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
I think one of the most important things, whether it's mothering, whatever a person is in, whatever station a person is in life, the first thing a person has to do is embrace themselves and appreciate themselves for who they are, and not try to be somebody else. Because then what happens is, like, you're an artist, Tanya. You can't fight with the canvas. You have to appreciate the canvas, whatever it is. You appreciate whatever you're given. If you work with it, you'll do like an architect doesn't say, oh, this house has been a mountain. We're going to flatten the mountain and then we'll build the house. No, you have to make the house on the mountain. That's the limitation of the house, or it could become the beauty of the house. Same thing with yourself. Let's say you're a person who has certain challenges. I don't know, staying with your children for a long time, or not having your children around you, whatever your challenges are, instead of feeling this is like a shortcoming, say, this is my reality. This is what I could do. This is how I'm going to do it. And if the minute you embrace yourself and also embrace your children, there's much less frustrations. There's much less like disappointments. Like if you embrace yourself, your spouse, and your children, you have a much happier life. And if a child is louder or quieter, a lot of times people want to change everybody around them to this perfect picture. There's no perfect picture. The perfect picture is everybody should be themselves. So I think that's one of the key things about also raising your children. Like, let the child be who they are. I remember I had one of my boys, I don't want to say, but used to wear like colorful belts to school and everything else. One teacher said, are you okay with it? I said, well, it bothers you? I know, but it's like weird, no? And I said, what's weird about it? I don't know, it's weird. The kid wants to do it. The kid's picking this out and putting it on top of their uniform. I'm like, let the kid wear it. Okay, fine. And it passed. If bad phase, it passed. Like the Bukhar and Yalma kiss and stuff like that.
Yeah. We definitely had very, very interesting outfit choices. We'll come back to you for like some like last closing. I'll close the night with a few like rapid fires. But now I'm just extending our wire so that I can pass it. You won't be on camera, just so that you can feel comfy, cozy, and so that more people will ask. I'll pass the camera. I'll pass the microphone if anyone has a question. As you know, you weren't allowed to come if you didn't have a question. So if there's no questions, then I'm kidding. And I'll also open it to anyone online who wants to ask a question. But first, anyone here?
I actually have two questions. My first question is, how did you get back into the hospital after they barred you out? After they kicked you out?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, I want to know the juicy stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So actually what happened was my husband never officially went back in to be a chaplain anymore. Even though my husband is a chaplain, now we do have a chaplain from Aishel House visiting the hospitals, who is now my son. But we decided to go l'chatchila ariber. And instead of my husband visiting patients, and that's how we found out he was there. And I have to say that the scope of the Rebbe's influence in the Jewish community is so great that between the many shluchim all over the country and all over the world, when they hear that someone in their community needs help and they're going to Houston, they right away call us. The World Wide Web has exploded since then. So if somebody just Googles a place to stay or kosher food, they come to us. And then word of mouth between people who are in the hospital that will come. And for a lot of Jews who are in Houston, when someone has to come to Houston, they'll call somebody in Houston. And even people who are Reform and conservative will be telling their friends to come to Asial House. So we kind of like circumvented the system where now the first place people come is going to be to Asial House before they get to the hospital. So they already have our bag and our food. And yeah, it's actually incredible. And when it happened, like, I remember when it happened, I couldn't understand what Hashem wanted. But today I was just learning in the Chumash, it says that the Yidden came, they saw Pari chasing them. They were like, what is this? Like, we thought we're leaving Mitzrayim. And basically from that vision of seeing Pari, their tefillas were so amazing. It reminds me of October 7th tefillas, post-October 7th tefillas, that something came out of it that was so great. I think all of us have experiences in life that we mamish feel like Pari is chasing us, or we feel like we're in the Yam Suf drowning. And that's, and the Alter Rebbe speaks about in the Torah also of this week, that when you're in that state, you have two choices. You can either look at the Pari and become so overwhelmed with fear and freeze and maybe not even be able to continue. Or you could say, there's Hashem. He placed me here. He gave me this challenge. He didn't leave now that my life is hard. He's right here anyways. And talk to him. And I have to say, I know this from a lot of people who've been through mild and big and little hardships. People say they miss the intimate conversations they had with Hashem during the challenges. I told my husband, I don't want that time again. But my davening then was also like when my son wasn't needed a refuah shleima and things like that. It was so pure. So I just think like I thank Hashem for that very clear time of connection. Yeah.
It's beautiful. I was just going to ask, like, how did you navigate, like at a young age when you were just newly married and you're going through these challenges in your life? How did you navigate your shalom bayis or your like emunah and Hashem when like Hashem's throwing these rocks at you, but that message that you said was beautiful also about paro.
But you know what? Even what we're saying about the shalom bayis, a person has to make that untouchable in their life. I think that some things, just like, you could have a ring here for my bubby. Doesn't matter how much money I need. I'm never selling that ring for my bubby. She gave it to me from Bas Mitzvah. It's like an unnegotiable thing, right? Your shalom bayis has to be that sanctity that it never comes down to that. And I think today, like my mother even told me once, I remember she said, like somebody made a joke that, oh, my wife is out shopping again, or my husband is out playing with his friends. And I said, you can't joke about your marriage. Your marriage is not a joke. I was like, Ma, like it's just a joke. She's like, no, it's not a joke. And I think when you give it that sanctity in that relationship, and you should know that when we were in the NICU for those few months, one of the nurses was very taken by us, was very cute. We had at that time, a chitas was a little torn. So we kept it by her bedside. And one time they had to do a procedure and they said, they're so sorry. Are they allowed to move the holy book? It looks like it's ancient. I said, ancient. I think we bought it 5 years ago, but the cover fell off. And, they thought it was like an old ancient book in a plastic bag that no one should touch it. Yeah, it was very cute. But she told us, she said, most of the couples you see in the NICU are going to be either divorced or separated in a short time. And the Torah of like mitzvahs, mikvah, and things like that, these are preservations for the human psyche to stay whole. The Hashem created that so the Jew should have the most optimal life of a blend of spiritual and physical. When you realize that, you're careful with halacha in that time. Like I remember someone said to me, it's so sad that, you just had a baby and things are hard. And, or like, if you're like, we know people that in the time of need and their husband's very sick and it gets very complicated. When you realize that this is where the Eibishter is, you respect that, and then it preserves you. So,
thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
You mentioned earlier that you find that joy is found in the in the limitations. Like when you know yourself, you know what you're capable of. But then you also said that you have to push yourself, and like your purpose is outside your limitations.
Okay, so when I mean to push yourself, means say that I'm not becoming a bodybuilder or an athlete, but it doesn't preclude me from lifting a certain amount of weights to keep my body in shape. But if I don't do anything, or if I do the minimal, like physically, let's say to give the example, did you ever see how a car could idle and it's still running the motor? Some people live their whole life like that. They're in that car, their car, but they're not doing anything with their car. They're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. The same thing is with your body. You could have a body and you could use it to like the minimal potential. You say you're not getting out of your comfort zone. When I mean your comfort zone, I mean within your limitations. Meaning to say not to be somebody else, but let's say, for example, when I mean to push yourself, I mean to say like, don't be afraid to follow your inside, like go to the end of yourself. Don't stay like in the inside of yourself. How do I explain this? It's like if a person is limited maybe to their preconceived notions about themselves. Let's say everybody always said you were shy. You're going to stay shy for the rest of your life because you never took the liberty, or that you're not a good speaker, or that you're not, I don't know, or that you're not a good navigator. But inside you think maybe you are a good navigator. Accept yourself if you're not a good navigator. Don't try to become a navigator, but maybe you do have a potential to navigate. Or what I mean to say to push yourself means to say like, don't be satisfied with your lower self. Try to be your higher self, but be yourself, which means it's different than somebody else. When I mean you're to accept yourself, it doesn't mean to like limit yourself. Accept your talents or your kishrenes. Like if somebody is short or tall, or is an artist, or is very mechanical, or is very analytical. Don't try to be an artist if you're analytical, or if you don't have that. Like you see some people that they do many things in their life, and they'll say, I did this because my mother wanted me to do this, or my father wanted me to do this. It's not me at all. My whole life I wanted to be an artist, or I want to become a doctor, or I never wanted to be a doctor. I always want to be a businessman. That's what I mean. I mean, accept yourself means who you really are. But whatever you are, you have to do your fullest. You push yourself to your limit. Like, I know myself that you could coast or you could exert. In exercise, if you just coast, you start to decline. You have to push the whole time. And you may be pushing in a similar area. Swimming, you always have to push, right?
Like slight exertion, not like, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, always pushing yourself. Meaning, let's say Friday night meals for you to have guests is very hard. You're not going to have 30 people for Friday night. But let's say you have 2 people. Then you had 2 people ready for 3 months. You say, you know what? You'll do a family with 4 people. That's what I mean. Grow that thing that let's say you're good at or you know how to do. Or if it's new to you, do it slowly. But don't deny yourself. Like, don't become afraid to push yourself a little bit because you might fail. Which, by the way, most success comes after failure. You have to fail to succeed. There's no other way. There's no other way. I failed many times. Look, how many times I've spoken to people who are in very, very difficult times. In the beginning, I was afraid to say anything. I told my husband, what am I going to tell them? He said, don't say anything. Just stand there, say Tehillim or whatever. And then eventually over time, Hashem gave me the wisdom of what to say. And sometimes I come back and I say, look, I had a story with a lady. I'm going to tell you the story. Can I tell the story? Yeah. So Esther Matias, she's like the coolest lady I know. I could say her name. She won't mind that I'm saying it. And if she watches, I'll say, hi, I love you. She's the most incredible lady. She had to come back, and she did 9 months of treatment in Houston. And then like the following year and a half, it came back and they said they have to amputate her leg. And I was like, really? What was the purpose of the whole year? Like, she wasted a year. I was so mad. I said, was Aishel playing a trick with her? She went through so much, like the treatment and everything. Anyways, when they came, her husband came into the house. When they came, by mistake, we put them upstairs in the apartment with steps. And her cousin says, what are you thinking? She can't walk after the surgery. What were you thinking? We're like, we didn't realize. I said, you know what? Maybe your foot won't be amputated. And she was like, Rochel, it's not time for that now. So I said, no, listen, you never know. And she said she already took medications for numbing and not to feel it and everything else. And I was so devastated because I couldn't imagine her without a leg. She's a very vivacious person. So her husband came over to get the keys from our car to go buy himself like some things that he thought she would want after the surgery, like cottage cheese or whatever. When he came in, I said to him, I know it sounds crazy, but till tomorrow's surgery, don't say she's getting her leg amputated. What if the surgeon will go in there? Said, what if you were the Eibishter? The Eibishter could go in the middle of the night, he could radiate her leg, get rid of the tumor, and then they could save the leg. He's like, a main Rebbitzin, I don't know, whatever. He's like making faces. And of course, as soon as he left, I said to my husband, okay, I spoke too much. What was I thinking? It's completely inappropriate. He said, you're right. You spoke too much. I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. I can't believe I said it. He said, well, now you're going to have to be mispal a whole night. I don't know what to tell you. Literally, I could not sleep a whole night. I was like, Eibishter, don't cut off the leg. Lazar up. I was begging him. I didn't take out a tilim. I said a few kapitlach. I was more mad. I was like, Habrachmanis. She's like a woman that's so much emunah and everything. Like, what? Anyways, the next morning I was so stressed out that they were doing it. And I also felt so stupid. I said, how insensitive of me to say that about the steps. But it just came out of my mouth. It was like, just came out of my mouth. And then with Ronnie, when I told him again, I was like digging my heels. And like, what kind of stupidity was this? It's like, Eibishter, please, have Rahman on her. And of course, what do? I make food and everything. And I drop off Tati to go bring food to the hospital. I said, okay, I'll pick you up because sometimes it's easier because of the parking. It's just either drop off. We're so close. And if it's hot, you drop somebody off. And then I'm about to leave. And then Tati calls me and says, Rochel, come back here. I have to talk to you in person. And what happened was the surgery took a really long time. It was supposed to take like 2 hours. And it was like 5 hours later and there was no news. So I started to think really bad things because sometimes with an amputation, you can have terrible hemorrhage. And I was like, he wants to tell it to my face, probably. And I'm like, I couldn't even drive back. I was driving back. And Ty says, roll down your window. I remember I rolled down my window. He says, they saved her leg. I said, what? I was screaming. And the guy was like, is everything okay? The valet attendant. I was like, yeah. Tati said, that's it. I'm coming back with you. She's coming back from the hospital tomorrow. She's going back for her grandson's bris. And she came back and she said, you crazy Lubavitchers, you're crazy. You're crazy Lubavitchers. You said we could daven to Hashem. You can save the leg. Hashem save the leg. So, okay, it's an extent of pushing, yeah? So I'm not telling people to do that. This wasn't warranted. I think Hashem kind of like had Rahmanis on the me. Wouldn't be so mean. I don't know. It was like such a mean thing what I did. What I mean to say is like, don't be afraid to fail as long as it's within the rhythm of who you really are. But failure, also a lot of times failure is about other people. It's not about yourself. If nobody else was in the room, you wouldn't be afraid to fail. But someone else came into the room and saw you fail. Like, did you ever mess up on food in the kitchen? Yes. If you have to serve it, it's embarrassing. But if no one serves it, and even if a husband never found out that you burnt the whole pot and you buried fat, it's not too bad, right? You don't care. It's not bad. So what? It's someone else knowing that you failed. But if you are okay with failing and saying, oh, I have to be careful with this next time, then your failure taught you something. But you can't limit yourself though. So you're going to always have to push a little. But be yourself, meaning dance how you dance, like not to copy. Be you, but push. You understand? Be you, but push.
Thanks so much for coming and for speaking to us.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
But I know I can relate to this, but you say that like having an imagination and dreaming is key.
And the key is healthy. It's good.
Healthy.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
what are like some practices like starting out and like trying to like use training wheels to get that moving?
How to access your own imagination. So some people have, let's say, maybe general intuitions to do that. But a lot of times somebody will have a thought and they say, oh, what a stupid idea is that? Don't say that. Say, oh, what is this idea? What did I just think about? And it could be as crazy as deciding to go out for lunch in the middle of the day and doing something that you never thought you would do. Free yourself from your restriction, okay? Or it could be like, maybe I should pursue learning something new. Or maybe I need to move. Now, I'm not saying to be impulsive, okay? And to have a vision means, say, you have to have hands and feet and you have to be able to get there. But when that thought comes in, let it ruminate and sit with it a little bit. And then think, is this something that's talking to me? Is Hashem telling me something? We are all spiritual beings. We get messages from places. The physical world that we live in, it's not an imagination. This is not an imagination. Hashem created the physical world for us to be living in it. But we are living with spiritual waves running through us. Sometimes our spiritual waves come through us in a physical thing, meaning to say that you have an idea of doing something physical, but really it has a spiritual element. Baal Shem Tov says that when a Jew wants to eat or drink water, he basically wants so badly to be invited in the tzitzim to make the bracha on the food. And it's that famous sikha of Chana that the Rebbe spoke about, that when Chana came into the Beis HaMikdash, that's what she was telling Eli. It was like she wanted Shmuel, not because she wanted Shmuel. She wanted to raise the Navi of the generation, and it was aligned with her neshama, and she knew that. Chana was able to be attuned with her inner self. Tefillah is supposed to be that time. So sometimes when a person davens, sometimes you finish davening and you say, oh, banish the thought, what I just thought. No, let it ruminate. If you journal or if you write things down, sometimes people are afraid to write things down because people are going to see it and they're going to see how crazy they are or whatever. Write it down. Say, is this something that you could relate to? Is this something you could do? If a person's married and they have a spouse who would be included in that thing, say, I had this meshuggah idea to do this thing. And sometimes we say the word meshuggah before because it gives us permission to say it. Or you say, I had this sometimes I used to use the word machshava zara or vilda eitza, like a wild idea. And then you say, it's not such a vilda eitza, And sometimes you do those things and you follow through on it. It's not bad, but cultivate it in that sense. And by the way, as parents, we should never squash our children's intuition. When a child says, okay, a lot of times kids say, I'm going to be a fireman, I'm going to be a policeman, whatever. But sometimes you meet a young child and they say, when I get older, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And instead of telling to the child, what? How are you going to do this? Say, that's interesting. How are you going to do that? What are you going to do about that? And then the child could, like one of the kids said they want to be a tzaddik. So another person says, a tzaddik? You can't be a tzaddik. Say, oh, that's very good. And a tzaddik keeps his yarmulke on his head the whole time. Let's start with that. Yeah.
My question is, how, I guess, do you instill the love of giving to your children in a way that doesn't make them feel forced, or maybe it is good to force them to give?
No, I don't think forcing is ever good.
Without them feeling resentful, I guess is the word.
It's a very good question. And you know what? Actually, when we first started doing our work, I remember that we had, at one point, we had 3 young fathers who passed away in a period of 3 weeks. And these were men who had stayed in our Asial House for almost 9 months. So it was very devastating for us, but also for our kids who had relationships with all of their families. And I spoke to a friend who's a child psychiatrist, and I was talking to her. I said, I really hope I'm not damaging my kids, like exposing them to so much sadness and grief. And she said, just the opposite, Rochel. You're teaching them resilience for life. She said, how you react is what they understand grief to be. Because it's not so personal. They didn't, Baruch Hashem, lose their own parent, but they see how other people react, so they understand that to be the reality, what you're supposed to do afterwards. So the same thing with giving. If you give, because it's such a big mitzvah, but it's so hard, your kids are not going to want to give, I'm telling you right now. And the Rebbe spoke about this when mothers have big families. He said, the Rebbe asked women to have big families. He said, if the mother is going to have a big family, say, oh, the Rebbe wanted we should have big families. I'm going to have another child. The child would say, I'm going to be a little smarter than my mother. I'm not going to have a big family. It was so hard for mother. Or Pesach. Pesach, you have a lot of work. And you say, Pesach, such a drag and it's so hard. Your child would say, I don't like Pesach. Pesach's a holiday. Everybody gets nervous and anxious. And in our house, Pesach is so much fun. We have so much fun, Pesach. Literally fun. Is it a lot of work for me? Yeah. But I'm thinking about it. I am actually taking my children through the experience of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And Hashem gave me this chus to be able to raise my children in a free society, and I can still teach it to them. Okay, it includes sometimes disappointing, this year we don't have cleaning help yet, so it's going to be very interesting. And the reliance on different things that you have to do, and physical work is sometimes untenable. But if you keep focused and you know what the goal is, the same thing is when you're to give your children the geschmack or the enjoyment for giving, you cannot give it to them. You have to have it. And they will pick it up. If they don't pick it up, it may not be within their calling to do that in their life. Just to support you giving may be all they can do. And I remember that we once had, one of our children said to us, how come I can get steaks like the people in the hospital? Because we never made steaks. The interesting story. But you have to give your child permission to not have to be you. It's not easy, but it's something that, and let's say you see in your child, let's say your child's not a giver, can't share. So I tell my kids things like, if you can't share it, maybe you don't really have it. I don't even know if you have it. If you can't share it, maybe you don't have it. And the kids were getting older. But you could encourage sharing, and then you could share. You could show how you share. And what I mean to say is I don't mean with other people, but in the house. Give a chair first, bring a glass of water, not to be the only one, but to say, and when someone else shares, to say, that was beautiful, I saw you shared. It's not easy to share. So I think this concept of sharing and giving is something that we have to encourage in our little tiny nucleus in our family, and then it goes out. But don't expect every child to do that. And I don't know if you can make a child do that. I don't think we can make our children do anything.
Okay, I'm going to end with these.
Yeah.
I got these questions from people before online from the Human and Holy community, but we're going to do it like rapid fire style. So I'm going to challenge you to answer in 3 sentences or 2 sentences.
One of my shortcomings.
No. It's going to be fun. Okay. What does it truly look like to be joyful in the day-to-day?
Be present and be grateful. And know that Hashem has your back. And I think you said it at your graduation, that simcha is amunah and amunah is simcha. When a person has amunah, what is amunah? What is faith? That faith, real faith brings you joy, knowing Hashem runs the world. That's really the source of your joy. Knowing Hashem has a plan for you. And it's okay. And like when things go flying, Hashem knows about it. He didn't leave now that things are like the mother left the house and everything went flying. Hashem is still there.
Nice.
So that keeping that in mind always, that Hashem has a plan is what could help you be joyful. Yeah, and also just always just be happy. Just force it through.
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Just be happy. How to trust that Hashem will send revealed good in your life when there's so much suffering in the world. Can you do this on one foot?
Recognize that you may not always see the revealed good, not because it's not present, because you may not have the ability to see it. And the Rebbe spoke about this with Mashiach, that we have to open our eyes and start identifying the Mashiach things in our world. And then the more we identify, the more will be revealed. So like, let's say now we're having a conversation between women, an honest conversation. 50 years ago, this could have never happened. It's live. People could hear it. It's actually wild. So when you identify that as what it is, the same thing is when you see something happen that's negative, you have to realize it's not negative. You just don't know you don't know what it really is. Your vision is limited.
Nice.
And not because you're doing something about it, because that's where you're standing. It's just, that's the place like next to the mountain that you can't see.
Beautiful. Okay. How do you suggest shluchais prioritize their children and work-life balance while building massive organizations from the ground up?
So first of all, don't be preoccupied with building a massive organization. Just be preoccupied first with building your family. That should be your first primary focus. And then anything else that you do is like extra. Meaning to say that you can have all these goals, but your first priority and when I say your children, it's not just your children, it's your spouse and your children. Your family life comes first. And the women have been entrusted by Hashem to keep the family life whole throughout the generations. And if you look throughout Jewish history, women were the ones who kept that. And now we're at a point where women have many more opportunities to veer away from the nurturing of the home. And I don't mean that meals and cooking, because a lot of that could be replaced. I'm talking about the bina, the understanding, the soft touch, the woman's intuition of things. Don't give that away for something else. And then I'll tell you something else. Childbearing years and child rearing years is a mere of 20 years. Most average people today are going to live till 100. Seriously, you don't want to take the 20 years investment and pause. I told you about Florence. We have a friend that she went to law school after her kids were in middle school. Like, make your priority. You could still do something, but your priority has to be your kinderlach first, because your kinderlach are never going to be small again. And there's nothing to replace an undistracted, focused, happy, settled mother. Now you have to make parnasa. There's certain realities on the ground. You have to do it. But that's, you're just doing, like, when you clean the floor, you're not invested in cleaning the floor. You just have to get the floor clean. You're going to find the fastest way to do it. When it's going to come to talking to your child, you're not looking for the fastest way to do it. You're looking for the most meaningful way, the most connective way. So that's what it should be. That should be your priority. Your highest self is with your children. You do many other things. And then when they'll get bigger, you'll have more time for your higher self to be involved outside of their lives.
You could also do both a little bit, no?
Yeah, but when you do it, not at the expense of your children.
Yeah, I hear that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no.
Okay, final one. This is mine.
Yeah.
Ooh. I asked to stall my guests.
Okay.
So welcome to the club.
Okay.
If you are sitting across from one person and you could give one message from your heart to theirs, or let's do it because we're in a room of people.
Yeah.
If you could give like one message to every woman in this room, just like truly from your soul to theirs, what would you say?
Believe that Hashem gave you everything you need to accomplish your mission. He knows you. He knew you before you were born. He knew which parents he gave you to, whether you experienced trauma or not. He knew which spouse he's going to give you, or if he's going to give you a spouse. He knew he's going to give you children if he's going to give you children. And he believes that you could accomplish your mission in that space. Believe in Hashem. He believes in you.
That was beautiful. Wow. Mommy, thank you for coming
You're
on.
welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you did, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating or review. Small lift from you, but really supports us in growing the show and bringing you better content every single week. Email us at info@humanandholy.com. We love hearing from you. Visit humanandholy.com/sponsor, where you can become a supporter and contribute over our work, dedicate or sponsor a specific episode, become a partner with the work that we're doing, and help us bring this into the world every single week. You can find us on Instagram at Human and Holy, and you can listen on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. New episodes come out every Sunday and Wednesday morning. Thank you so much for being here. Wishing you a wonderful day.